Thank you, Senators. We'll move to question time, and the first question is... Oh, sorry, Senator Wong.
Yeah. I seek leave to make a statement concerning ministerial arrangements.
Is leave granted? Leave is granted.
I advise changes to ministerial arrangements. Senator Watt will be absent from question time today for personal reasons. In Senator Watt's absence, ministers will represent portfolios in accordance with the letter circulated to the President and party leaders and independent senators. I'm happy to run through the list if any senator wishes.
Thank you. Senator Birmingham? Oh, sorry, I didn't know if you were responding.
No, not today.
Okay, so we'll now move to question time, and the first question is to Senator Birmingham.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. I refer to the release of ministerial diaries by the Attorney-General and the Treasurer detailing their first 100 days in office. The Attorney-General, Mr Dreyfus, has said, and I quote, "I'm going to continue to work with colleagues and across the public service on making sure that there is as much transparency as possible about our government information and ministerial diaries." Minister, given the commitment of the Attorney-General to create as much transparency as possible about ministerial diaries, why is the Prime Minister refusing to release his diary, putting him at odds with his own Attorney-General and Treasurer?
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. Minister.
Thank you. There is obviously a FOI. I assume these are FOI claims, not or requests, not one of the many orders for production that seems to be occurring at the moment. Obviously, every freedom of information request is distinct, has to be considered on its merits, and every minister will have to respond to requests in a manner that is appropriate to those individual circumstances. So I'm not the FOI decision maker, but I know that FOI decision makers obviously will have to make a judgment on the basis of the merits of the application before them.
Senator Birmingham, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. Minister, does the government have a government policy, regarding the release of ministerial diaries? If so, what is it?
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. Minister Wong.
Well, the government observes the provisions of the Freedom of Information legislation, and applications are processed in accordance with that legislation. That is the appropriate way in which these matters should be dealt with.
Second supplementary. Thanks, Senator Birmingham.
Mr President, is the Minister representing the Prime Minister aware that FOI applications for ministerial diaries remain outstanding for some other ministers, including herself? Will the Minister for Foreign Affairs be releasing her diary and adopting the Attorney-General's approach to transparency, or will she be joining the Prime Minister in thumbing her nose at the Attorney-General?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, I'm glad that here we go again. Senator Birmingham's newfound interest in transparency. I bet you didn't release yours, did you, mate? You didn't release yours, and nor did anyone release the ministerial list that showed the secret ministries that the Morrison government was engaged in. Nor did anyone release the details of Senator McKenzie using spreadsheets to allocate government monies. Nor did anyone release how it is that you funded car parks which people didn't want. So the Australian people, I think, will look at you and your questions as a former member of the leadership group who helped cover up all of this, and they will look with a very clear eye at the hypocrisy on the other side of the table.
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. Point of order.
On the question of direct relevance, President, on the question of direct relevance, the Minister has spent 51 seconds talking about the former government to a question about whether or not she would comply with an FOI request for her own diary and just meet the same standards as the Attorney-General, or thumb her nose like the PM has.
You've made the point of order. I'll direct the Minister to order. Senator McGrath and Senator Birmingham, Senator Birmingham, I'm responding to the point of order. Minister, I'll direct you to that part of the question.
Thank you. Decisions will be made in accordance with the Freedom of Information legislation.
Yes, thank you. Order. Senator McKenzie, when you've quite finished, I draw to the attention of honourable senators the presence in the chamber and gallery of a parliamentary delegation from Vietnam, and I know they've met many senators and MPs across the parliament. The delegation is led by His Excellency Mr Vuong Dinh Hue, President of the National Assembly. On behalf of all senators, I wish you a warm welcome to Australia and in particular to the Senate. Senator Payman.
Thank you, President. My question is to Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. How is the Albanese government delivering on its plans for a better future for all Australians?
Minister.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Payman for her question. And I say this: after a decade of wage suppression, of spiralling childcare and healthcare costs, of ideological wars, which are still occurring, and an out-of-touch former government that thrived on secrecy and cover-ups, Australia did need action, and this government is delivering. We're working to get wages moving and putting downward pressure on costs. And from our first day in office, our support ensured an increase to the minimum wage and a pay rise for aged care workers. Albanese Labor are investing in cheaper childcare, in cheaper medicines, paid parental leaves and secure jobs with better pay. I take the interjections because when you talk about secure jobs with better pay, there's nothing that gets the Liberals moving more than that, is there? They hate it. They hate it. And we're acting to make workplaces safer from sexual harassment with the passage of the Respect at Work bill based on recommendations which were left unfinished, and we're ensuring Australia has the skills of tomorrow. Excuse me, creating 180,000 new fee-free TAFE places. We've expanded the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card. We've ended the cashless debit card. We've established a Royal Commission into robo-debt. We have delivered the regional first home buyers guarantee. We passed an historic climate change bill and updated our climate targets. You should listen. You might learn something, Senator Ruston. We've invested in renewable energy and rewiring the nation. We are establishing a disaster-ready fund, a vital tool as we battle floods across Australia. We have entered the cover-up culture, and now the majority of whom refused. The majority of those who refused to censure their former leader. Where were all of you lining up to defend him? And of course, the National Anti-Corruption Commission. The National Anti-Corruption Commission that you spend years trying to avoid. Years trying to avoid.
Senator
now
Wong,
passed
resume your
under
seat.
an Albanese Labor government.
Before I call Senator Payman for her first supplementary, I am going to remind senators, particularly on my left, that you are being incredibly disorderly. You are shouting so loud that I cannot get the attention of Senator Wong. It is unacceptable, it is disrespectful and it's disorderly. Senator Payman.
Thank you, President. Minister, how is the Albanese government delivering on its plans to help Australians with the cost of living?
Minister. Senator McGrath, as one of the key offenders, I have not even called the minister and you've started interjecting again. Minister Wong.
Thank you. The Albanese Labor government is addressing the cost of living crisis created under the Liberal and National government with our cost of living plan, cheaper childcare, cheaper medicine, expanding paid parental leave to 6 months, more affordable housing and getting wages moving. You know, these are all things you could have done, but 9 years you didn't do them. We have already secured an increase in the minimum wage and an important pay rise for aged care workers, and our secure jobs, better pay policy will boost wages even further. We on this side understand the impact higher energy prices are having on households and businesses. But you know, we're actually trying to work on how we support households do that, how we have a response. You know what your response was? Let's hide it. Let's hide it. Let's hide it before the next election. Let's make sure no Australian knows about the hike in fees while we're in government. Let's hide it till after the election. What a disgrace.
Senator Payman, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, how is the Albanese government delivering on its plans to make us more influential and stronger in the world?
Minister Wong.
Thank you to the Senator, and I know this is an area in which she has such a great interest and personal knowledge. And what we saw over the last 9 years is slashing of Australia's development assistance. We saw Mr Dutton, returning to the sort of rhetoric around development assistance in the House this sitting period, and really that was a disgrace because this reduced our influence and it left a vacuum for others to fill, and we have a lot of catching up to do. So that is why we are committed to renewing our closest relationships and advancing our interests and values. That's why we're boosting Pacific security and defence, supporting critical infrastructure, expanding Pacific labour mobility, and why we have increased Australia's official development assistance to the Pacific and Southeast Asia, because it is in our national interests. We are rebuilding relationships to ensure Australia is the partner of choice in the region for our security and for the security of our region.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cadell.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. I refer you to the answers you gave regarding the secret government modelling in a document titled Estimated Impacts of CFPS and Associated Coal Mine Closures, dated October 2020, which details almost 800 job losses in the Hunter Valley alone associated with government policies and the closure of mines. In April this year, the now Prime Minister, when visiting the Hunter Valley mining communities, was quoted by the Newcastle Herald under the heading, "Anthony Albanese guarantees no jobs will be lost on the road to net zero." Can the Minister advise if the Prime Minister stands by his guarantees?
Thank you, Senator Cadell. Minister.
I thank the Senator for his question, and I did have the opportunity to follow up some of what he asked yesterday overnight, and I'm advised that the closures he in fact talked about were announced under your government. They were announced under your government. So I do find it somewhat passing strange that you try and make political mileage, as you are doing, and you did yesterday, about a closure that was actually flagged under you. Now, that's probably a fact I should have been aware of, and I'm grateful to my colleagues and to the departments for letting me know that, but these are closures that were flagged under the former coalition government. Obviously, we are working with the New South Wales government, which I note has a 50% emissions reduction target by 2030. So I look forward to your criticism of them, if that is in fact the way you want to approach this, to ensure the Hunter and other regions benefit from new jobs and opportunities in clean energy. And one of the differences between those on that side and those on this side of the chamber is that we want to look after workers. We want to look after workers. We're a movement and a party that has workers at our core.
Senator Davey.
I know it's hard
Senator
for those
McKenzie.
who spend so much of their time arguing against pay increases and telling us the sky's going to fall in if there's a $1 pay increase, and saying we can't afford to give aged care workers or those on the minimum wage an increase. But those on this side understand there is a transition that is occurring and will occur as a consequence of what is happening in global markets, as well as what is being committed to, I think, by both sides of government.
Davey.
So the difference between you and us is that we will ensure that there is a transition that is about employment.
Senator Cadell, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for that. In the same Newcastle Herald article, when referencing the Prime Minister's guarantee, the Prime Minister is quoted saying this wasn't about policies, but I quote, "Not only can we guarantee it, our modelling guarantees it." Does the Prime Minister stand by the Labor Party's pre-election modelling, or does he accept the official government modelling that says Labor's policies in the Hunter will cause 800 job losses?
Good question.
Thank you, Senator Cadell. Minister.
Well, I again remind I again remind those opposite that the closures that are referenced were announced under you. So I find it a little, interesting that, and I think many will, that those opposite who have all you really want to have your cake and eat it too, don't you?
Senator Birmingham, Senator McKenzie. There's a running commentary from the left-hand side of the chamber every time the minister speaks. Now, not only is that disorderly, it's also incredibly loud. And I would ask you to listen in respectful silence. Minister.
Respectful, disrespectful silence, just a bit of less noise might be helpful. But anyway, look, there is a transition that is occurring in our economy and globally. And would you like to speak, Senator McGrath? Senator McGrath? Well, you've got plenty of opportunities to speak. If Senator Cash ever sat down, I suppose Senator Cash might actually give you an opportunity to speak. Leave is granted. You use up.
Order. Senator Canavan, resume your seat. Senator Canavan, resume your seat. Order. Order. Order on my left and my right. Order. I have a senator on her feet. Senator Rice.
President, we denied leave for Senator Canavan to rant on about coal mining jobs and destroying the planet in the meantime.
Senator Rice, it's not order. Order, Senator Ayres. And Senator McGrath. I'm sorry, Senator Rice, there's so much noise in this chamber. I only heard the voices to give Senator Canavan leave. I did not hear anyone say he was denied leave. Senator Cadell, I believe we're up to the second supplementary question.
Thank you, President. The model that the Prime Minister relied on to make those false promises of job guarantees to the people of Hunter, is that the same modelling the Prime Minister and the government used to promise 97 times before the election that Australians will see a $270 reduction in their power bills? If that is the modelling, how can anyone trust what the government and the Prime Minister says?
Thank you, Senator Cadell. Minister, I didn't actually call you before you started. Minister Wong, thank you.
Apologies, President. Well, I'd make this point if you want to talk about truthfulness. Those on your side are signed up to the same target we are for 2050.
Senator Ruston.
This is a policy and a political point. You are also signed up to net zero by 2050, remember? And I know you want to talk about that a lot, and Kooyong and North Sydney didn't help. Well, this goes to policy. This goes to policy. Meanwhile, Mr. Canavan, Senator Canavan, gets up and gives that rant, which shows that was all fake. It was all fake. You thought you could say one thing in one place and one thing in another. Well, we are really clear. There is a transition that is occurring, a change in the global economy.
Order.
We either get ahead of it and we help workers and communities thrive in that, or you keep going to them and lying to them, misleading them about what is happening, because you're signed up to the same policy. You just don't have anything to back it.
Senator Wong, your time has expired. Senator Faruqi.
For climate change. In 1991, Vanuatu, on behalf of small island states, first ask the question, who should pay for climate catastrophe? Over the next 3 decades, wealthy nations of the global north dodged and deflected that question while continuing to fuel the climate crisis. They relentlessly pursued profit and power, putting the world on track for climate catastrophe and fueling climate disasters. These disasters have affected 33 million people in Pakistan, and 50 million people in the Horn of Africa face the threat of famine, amongst many others. After decades of pushing by the Global South, a loss and damage fund has finally been agreed to. New Zealand, Denmark, Germany, and Scotland have already committed to contributing. Will the government today commit to paying our fair share of loss and damage?
Thank you, Senator Faruqi. Minister Wong.
Thank you. We are committed to an effective global response on climate, and as Mr Bowen made clear, we welcome the historical progress made in if you want to waste your question time, I'm happy for you to do so.
Senator Wong, please continue.
I'll start again. We welcome the historical progress made in agreeing to a new loss and damage fund, and the parties have committed to exploring—
Senator Ruston. This is a question from Senator Faruqi. I think the least you could do is listen in silence so that the answer can be heard at that end of the chamber. Minister Wong. Senator McGrath. Interjections from you are particularly disorderly. Senator Wong, please continue.
We are pleased that the parties have committed to exploring a broad range of ways to provide support to vulnerable countries, including those in the Pacific. We've heard our Pacific family when they've said the region's loss and damage needs are distinct from the adaptation and resilience. And as you know, we are actively working with Pacific partners to consider new climate finance options, including on loss and damage, and to ensure global funding mechanisms work for the Pacific. So there is an engagement, a willingness to discuss, and I would make this point. Because I know the Greens come in here and they want us to do this, but they also want to reduce revenue from other sources, such as well, you know, what do you think happens if we end coal exports? Exactly. What do you think happens if we? I mean, this is, but what I would make this point that the
Order. Senator Thorpe, I've called the chamber to order. Minister, please continue.
I simply make this point. It would be much better for the country if there was bipartisanship on development assistance. I regret that was lost under those opposite and appears to continue to be lost.
Thank you,
but
Minister.
I would invite them to reconsider that.
Senator Faruqi, first supplementary.
Minister, as you well know, the climate crisis is an existential threat to the Pacific, where communities are facing rising sea levels and extreme storms. The government claims to be listening to the Pacific Islands. Well, the Pacific Islands have waited decades for loss and damage funding that is owed to those nations as a matter of global justice. What will your government do to ensure that a fund is established urgently with no room for backsliding?
Thank you, Senator Faruqi. Minister.
Well, I'm interested in the motivation, the implication about our motivation in that, because we are motivated genuinely. We are motivated. We had a long discussion yesterday about motivations. Senator McKinn demanded something be withdrawn. I noticed you did put it on social media afterwards anyway, but that's okay. But I would say to Senator Faruqi, the implication that we're not genuine in our engagement with our Pacific neighbours is wrong. We are. Now, that does not mean there is not a lot that we have to work through, and I have been upfront with them. I have said we are a highly emissions-intensive economy. We are seeking to shift the trajectory, the direction in which we're heading, and we are doing so belatedly. It will cost us more and it will be harder because of 9 years of inaction. Exactly. But we are serious about doing it. So please, if there was an implication, and perhaps I misheard, that somehow we are not genuine in how we engage with the Pacific, and because we understand the nature of the threat.
Thank you, Minister. Your time has expired. Senator Faruqi, second supplementary.
The Climate Change Minister tabled his climate change statement earlier today, but failed to even mention the elephant in the room, the impact of new coal and gas on Australia's climate targets. And yet, the latest greenhouse inventory, also released today, shows emissions from gas are increasing. Does the government acknowledge that burning coal and gas is causing and fueling the climate crisis? And why won't it rule out opening new coal and gas projects?
Thank you, Minister.
Well, I've answered this question many times. Excuse me. I understand this is the political campaign that the Greens party wishes to run between now and the next election. If I may say, that's a decision for you. But actually, the policy challenges are far greater. So you can have a mantra around that, but actually what we need to do is transition an economy which is not only emissions intensive domestically, but is reliant on high emissions intensity industries for much of our export revenue. Now, we have to transition the economy, change the economy so our people, our children, our country can thrive in a net zero world. That is an enormous undertaking. That is.
Senator Thorpe.
You see, I'll take that interjection. Because as I said to Senator Milne years ago, you know, it's possible that people might just disagree. It's not because
Senator Wong. Your time has expired. Senator Wong, your time has expired. Senator Sterle.
Democracy. You're only one voice.
Order.
Four voices.
Order.
One voice.
Senator O'Neill.
I'm sick of it.
Senator Sterle.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Trade and Tourism, Senator Farrell. As we come to the end of 2022, the tourism sector is hoping for a Christmas that sees Australians able to travel in a way they haven't been able to in recent years. Can the Minister outline the steps the Albanese Labor government has taken since being elected to support small and medium-sized tourism businesses recover from the impact of the global pandemic?
Thank you, Senator Sterle. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Sterle. Very interested in the topic of tourism and comes from that great state of Western Australia. Well, yes, the Albanese Labor government is supporting the tourism and travel sector's recovery in a way that the former Liberal National Government never ever did. We know the vast majority of tourism businesses are small and medium-sized. They collectively make a significant contribution to employment and our economy. To support this sector, we're delivering on our commitments, including through a $48 million investment over 4 years. And we're directly engaging industry to address the challenges that they face. In August, we held a Tourism and Jobs Skills Summit to hear from industry about the challenges they face. We've launched a visitor economy disability pilot. We're working on a project to better connect workers and employers in the industry. In October, I hosted a tourism ministers' meeting in South Australia with state and territory counterparts to collaborate on support for the industry. And I look forward to the next meeting, which will include the tourism ministers from the re-elected Andrews Labor government. In October, we launched the Come and Say G'day campaign to get international tourists back to Australia. Already, Senator Sterle, it's attracted 122 million views, which translated to a 74% increase in traffic on Australia.com. And last month, I'm going to come to the Bellarine and Mornington. Don't worry, Senator Henderson. Not in this question, though. And last month, we launched the Caravan Parks Grant Program to help park operators upgrade their facilities. The Albanese Labor government understands the challenges we've faced in tourism and travel, and we are committed.
Senator Sterle, first supplementary.
Done the whole. Wow.
First supplementary.
Thank you, President. Can the Minister outline further details about how the Albanese Labor government is helping small and medium-sized tourism businesses address labour and skills shortages so they can recover and thrive?
Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President. Senator Steele, yes, I can. In August, we held a Tourism Jobs and Skills Summit to hear directly from industry about labour and skills challenges. You never held one. You never held one. In September, we announced a $3.3 million to establish a visitor economy disability pilot to help people living with disability secure sustainable jobs in the tourism industry. The pilot will address barriers identified by small and medium tourism businesses in recruiting, retraining and progressing staff with disabilities. We are working with the industry on a project to provide a one-stop shop for showcasing career pathways, connecting employers with prospective workers and providing workers with information on jobs and upskilling opportunities. We want to see tourism workers return to this sector after they were forced to look and find work elsewhere under the previous Liberal National Government.
Your time has expired. Senator Steele, second supplementary.
I do, thank you, President. Now, Minister, in your earlier answer you touched on the Caravan Parks grant program to support businesses to improve their caravan parks. Can the Ministry outline how park operators, whether on the Mornington or Bellarine Peninsula or in tropical North Queensland or, more importantly, outback WA, will benefit from this program?
Minister.
Thank you, President. And yes, I can outline that, Senator Steele, and thank you for your great interest in this topic. The Albanese Labor Government is committed to supporting tourism businesses, including caravan park operators, to recover, grow and thrive. And, President, I know that Senator Steele and potentially even Senator Henderson would be pleased to hear that applications are currently not just open for caravan parks across the Mornington and Bellarine Peninsulas. Applications will not just be open in tropical far north Queensland or outback Western Australia. Grants are open for park operators all the way across Australia. And I can assure you that there will be no colour-coded spreadsheets from this government. The $10 million Caravan Park Grant Program will provide grants of between $10,000 and $100,000 to help eligible park operators upgrade their park facilities. As we move into the holiday period, I wish all those working in the tourism industry a happy and safe Christmas.
Order. Order. I wish to draw to the attention of honourable senators the presence in the chamber of Mr Sean Turnell, who I'm sure we're all so thrilled to see safely back in Australia. And of course, we also welcome his wife, Dr Havu, who we know fought long and hard for his release. And on behalf of all senators, I wish you a warm welcome to the Parliament and in particular to the Senate. Minister.
I seek leave to make a short statement.
Is leave granted? Leave is granted.
Can I say how pleased I am to see you in person, and Dr Havu as well. I know I speak for all Australians when I say we're so pleased to have you back here in Australia with us, and so pleased that you have been reunited with her after 21 months of unjust detention. And I would say to you, we know no one should have had to endure what you did, and that you've emerged from such an awful experience with your humanity and humour intact is truly remarkable. I want to acknowledge the work of all those across the government who worked so hard on your release, including the former government and Senator Payne here in the chamber. And I thank again publicly all the members of ASEAN, all our partners in ASEAN and other regional partners who advocated for your release. We're grateful to them. But most of all today, welcome to the Senate, to both you, Professor Turnell, and also to Havu. As I said, I've spoken to both of you, but it's lovely to see you in person.
Thank you. Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, President. Seek leave to make a short statement.
Leave is granted. Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, President. I thank the Senate and Professor Sean Turnell, Dr Havu. We also warmly welcome you, Professor Turnell, back to Australia, safe and sound. We thank you for the way in which you have always conducted yourselves, each of you, particularly noting that your engagement in Myanmar
was one to help uplift others, to deliver for others, and that the price you paid was an immense one. I too associate the opposition with the remarks of Senator Wong in thanking all of those who worked so hard to secure your release, and we know that you will continue to work hard wherever you can for the people of Myanmar.
Thank you, Senator Waters. That's Birmingham. I'm now going to move to Senator Tyrrell. Yes, Senator Tyrrell.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Education, Minister Gallagher. The ALP National Platform commits a Labor government to ensuring that disadvantaged schools get the biggest funding increases in the shortest time. Does this government stand by that promise?
Minister.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Tyrrell for the question and for her advocacy on behalf of children, and particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds who require for assistance and support through their schooling years. Yes, the answer to the question is yes. The Labor Party has clearly, through our platform, outlined our position on education. We are the party that introduced needs-based funding in recognition of students coming from disadvantaged backgrounds, whether that be where they lived, whether they had learning disabilities, whether they came from non-English speaking backgrounds, First Nations children, the recognition that in certain schools that the resourcing of those schools need to accommodate student populations. So we have a long and proud history of that, and I know that Minister Clare is working very hard in terms of the next round of negotiations with states and territories about how to best meet the commitments we've had outlined in our platform, but the position that the government has taken around ensuring that the education system, mindful of the fact that the states and territories have a significant role here, and the independent and Catholic sectors also educate large numbers of children and young people, that we do recognise disadvantage and try to structure our funding accordingly. But I also know from my previous role that education funding is a very contested issue about how the resourcing is applied. It's not easy, it's not straightforward, but we remain deeply committed to ensuring that every child, regardless of where they live, where they come from, what their parents' incomes are, get access to the best education possible in this country.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Tyrrell, first supplementary.
Thank you. Independent special assistance schools are a special stream of schooling that exists to provide education to the most socially and economically disadvantaged children in Australia. Your government's 2023 changes to funding calculations will see their budgets cut. They're not getting the biggest funding increase in the shortest time, they're getting funding cut right now. How is that not a broken promise?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister.
Thank you, and I have seen the reports about the situation in Tasmania, Senator Tyrrell, and I understand that the Jackie Lambie Network, or you and Senator Lambie, have raised concerns about what is happening under this funding model and how those decisions are flowing onto schools. I also know that you've met with the Minister for Education regarding the issue, and that the advocacy on behalf of the Jackie Lambie Network on behalf of those schools in Tasmania, or in particular school. As I understand, the Minister told the Senator that this is a scheme created under the former government. However, when it was brought to his attention about the impacts of that scheme and how they were flowing through to schools, he did ask the Department of Education to work towards resolving the issue, that this work is happening and he is working with some urgency.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Tyrrell, second supplementary.
Thank you. These schools are really important. My nephew was actually on an 18-month waiting list and he had to leave Tassie to go to Victoria to get educated. But the schools are making decisions about which staff to let go right now. They're asking you to reverse this decision urgently. I understand that we're working towards it, but it really does need to happen toot sweet.
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister.
Thank you. Yes, as I said in my previous answer, acknowledging what Senator Tyrrell has said, I understand the Minister is working on taking advice around what to do about this. I don't know that I don't know. I don't know the specifics about the funding scheme, but I don't know that it's having the intended. The consequences of how it's rolling out aren't what was intended, as I understand from this scheme. The minister is taking advice. He's had a number of meetings with Independent Schools Australia to understand their concerns about the scheme that, as I said, we inherited from the former government. And when a resolution is reached, Independent Schools Australia and any impacted schools will be informed directly. And I also understand from running a school system that schools will be taking decisions now in the lead up for the calendar year and the next school year, and the minister understands this as well.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Bragg.
Thank you very much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Energy and Climate Change, Senator Wong. Since the Labor government's first budget 4 weeks ago, in which the government had no response to the immediate energy price rises, various government ministers have publicly flagged export controls on gas, price caps on coal and gas, a new mining tax and direct energy subsidies to households. Other than publicly floating different policies, can the minister finally provide some certainty to Australians, to industry and to investors by ruling out—
Order.
It's very hard. I'm struggling just to get the question out here. It's very loud over there. So.
Senator Bragg, I have called senators to order. Order. Order, senators on my right.
Don't you think? Yeah, I thought you'd agree. So, other than publicly floating different policies, can the minister finally provide certainty to Australians, to industry, to investors by ruling out intervention that would only make a difficult situation even worse?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister.
Which one of the 22
I'm asked a question about policy certainty. I'm asked a question about policy certainty from the Coalition. I'm asked a question about policy certainty from the Coalition on energy. How many energy policies did they have? Was it 1? Was it 2? Was it 10? Was it 12? Was it 15? Was it 18? Was it 20? Was it 22?
Order.
Oh my goodness, 22 policies! And surprise, surprise, the market said, well, we don't want to invest when we don't even know what the policy framework is. So we saw dispatchable energy out, and we had less energy in. Prices started to increase. There was a default market offer with an increase. Guess what their great certain policy response was? Let's hide it. Let's hide it. I tell you what, I've got a great idea, says Scotty Morrison and Angus. They all sit there in a room, maybe with this one here, with Senator Birmingham. I'm sorry, Mr. Morrison and Mr. Taylor, and they said, "Yeah, let's do. Oh, we know what we'll do. We'll just hide it. That's what we'll do. That's our great policy response." And then we come to government and we see the mess. And yes, we are working our way through your mess, which has got worse.
Order on my left. Senator Birmingham. Senator Birmingham. Minister, please continue.
And then we come to government, and what we discover is a hidden price increase. We discover an energy market which is on the edge. All on top of what is occurring in global energy markets, which Senator Rennick says are irrelevant, but Senator Birmingham stood on this side and told us all about. So we will work through this, and we will work through this with the states.
Thank you, Minister.
But nobody on that side can.
Senator Bragg, first supplementary. Order, Senator Gallagher.
Wong, I've worked in risk markets all my life.
Senator Bragg. Senator Gallagher.
Hi.
Senator McAllister, order.
That's right.
Senator Bragg.
Thank you.
Just call me Son Zach.
Order. Senator Bragg.
Thank you very much. The Queensland, New South Wales and South Australian governments have all expressed opposition to price caps on energy. Will the government rule out price caps that just risk deterring energy investment and exacerbating the current shortages for many years to come?
Thank you. Senator Bragg, Minister.
Unlike those opposite, we do understand the importance of policy certainty, and we do understand the importance of working with the states. And as the Prime Minister said, I think last night on 7:30, we will work through these issues, including with the states, and obviously the National Cabinet.
Order. Order from everyone. Minister, please continue.
Thank you.
Senator Mackenzie, I've just called the chamber to order and you just continue calling out. Minister, please continue.
Thank you. We will work through this issue with the states, and of course, it is a difficult issue. We don't shy away from that. We are dealing with a legacy problem, or we're dealing with a global markets problem. And what I would say, Senator Bragg, if more on your side understood some of those policy issues, I suspect the country would not be in the position it is.
Senator Bragg, second supplement.
Thank you very much. This week at Senate estimates, both the Treasury Secretary and the Governor of the Reserve Bank said that Australia needs more gas. Why did the government cut supply-side policies in its budget? And can you name one government policy that aims to increase the production of Australian gas?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister.
I'm not sure to what I'm not sure to what the minister is referring. Sorry, the senator is referring,
Order. Order. The minister has the right to be heard in silence. Please continue, Minister.
I gave you a promotion. See, I must like you, Senator Bragg. I'm not sure to what you're referring, Senator Bragg, but I would make a point about gas supply. Between 2014 and 2021, East Coast gas production increased.
Wow. Order.
Oh, it's always someone else.
Senator Van, order.
Class, it's always someone else's fault.
Senator Van,
Minister
you lost
Gallagher.
the state election, mate. Just give it a rest for a little while.
Minister, please continue.
Between 2014 and 2021, East Coast gas production increased 300%. Because, in great part, because the
Minister, please resume your seat. Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Madam President. Just on relevance, the question went to policies, not statistics, historical statistics that the minister is referring to now.
The minister is being directly relevant. Minister, please continue.
Well, I'm making the point about, you might not like to know this, that despite a 300% increase in gas production, domestic gas prices went up by 420% in real terms over that time. So the point is the policies you had failed. That's the point.
Thank
so
you,
we are trying to work our way through that.
Senator Babet.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Health Minister, Senator Gallagher. The recent release of Australian Bureau of Statistics provisional mortality data for our nation shows all-cause mortality to the end of August is currently a staggering 18,671, or 17% higher than the historical average. Now, a report which appeared in the Lancet Medical Journal also shows that Europe is facing an increase in cancer diagnosis after an estimated 1 million cases of cancer went unfound due to the COVID lockdowns and other draconian measures. Can the minister advise what we are doing here in Australia to make up for the many thousands of likely missed cancer diagnoses over the last 2 years?
Thank you, Senator Babet. Minister.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Babet for the question, and we are working with the states and territories. There is no doubt. I mean, I don't want to align myself with the mortality data and this, because I haven't seen what you were citing from. But the broad, well, that's fine. I'm not questioning it. I'm saying I haven't seen it. So my answer is in relation directly to the question, not the preamble. So the question was, what are we doing? There is no doubt that our health services over the last 2 years were significantly affected by the pandemic. So services that would normally be provided through hospitals, people going to GPs, people actually even seeking health treatment because they had a concern, significantly changed during the pandemic. We are working with the states and territories, as you would expect, through the National Health Reform Agreement, about transitioning out of the pandemic and the COVID focus. They'll have significant pressure on the hospitals, but also in primary care. And as people come forward, there is no doubt there was delayed seeking of health attention or seeking of health assistance and access to services through the pandemic. And it will take some time to work through that, but we are working with the states and territories through the Prime Minister and the First Ministers through National Cabinet about pressures in the health system and transitioning away from COVID-19 and the COVID-19 focus.
Thank you. Senator Babet, first supplementary.
Deaths with COVID-19, generally not solely from COVID-19, have been recorded by the ABS as 7,727 at the end of August. Even if we exclude all deaths with COVID-19, we are still seeing excess deaths of about 10,944. Can the minister explain or advise what research, if any, is being done to look into the cause of this alarming excess mortality?
Thank you, Senator Babet. Minister.
Well, again, I haven't. Thank you, President, and for the senator for the question. Again, I haven't seen the data to which the senator is referring, so I think it is appropriate that I don't just immediately accept those statistics. But I think there will be, over time, a lot of information, a lot of research and assessment done about our response to COVID-19 and some of the other consequences of the fact our health system had to respond to a global pandemic, and therefore other services were either wound down, didn't operate, or people chose not to seek assistance during the pandemic. I have no doubt that there will be plenty of academics and researchers who are interested in that, assessing that, and then making recommendations about what should happen when the next global pandemic hits the country or all countries. So that,
thank you,
I'm
Minister.
sure there will be done.
Your time has expired. Senator Babet, second supplementary.
Now, we've seen some alarming data out of South Australia sourced by Senator Alex Antic, to my right, which shows a material increase in cardiac presentation in 15 to 44-year-olds commencing in July 2021, a time when there were very minimal COVID cases. What is the minister doing to investigate the underlying cause of the spike in heart-related issues? Does the government still assert that the mRNA injections are still safe and effective?
Thank you, Senator Babet. Minister.
Thank you. Well, I haven't seen Senator Antic's research either, and I'm not sure of your background in epidemiology and assessing, what's the health trends during a global pandemic, but I can be corrected if you have some background in that. In relation to do we think the vaccines are safe? Yes. The TGA has gone through its process. As you know, Senator Babet, they also report on adverse events, and myocarditis, pericarditis in younger people was one of the identified risks of those vaccines, and everybody was informed of that, and it was seen as a risk. Those people where it affected them, particularly younger men, as I understand it, those adverse events were recorded. But I should also say the vaccines have saved thousands and thousands of lives, particularly most vulnerable Australians, and the pandemic and the vaccine program was always about responding to that.
Thank you. Senator Urquhart.
My question is to the Minister for Finance, Minister for Women and Minister for the Public Service, Senator Gallagher. Could the minister update the Senate on the government's achievements across her 3 portfolios over the past 6 months?
Minister.
Oh, thought there was a longer question.
Order.
I will.
Order.
I will. Thank you very much, Senator Urquhart. Can I thank you for your interest in my 3 portfolios and for the question? It has certainly been a very busy time since the Albanese government was elected 6 months ago, and we've spent every single day focused on implementing our plan for a better economy, better budget and better future. We've begun the work of budget repair, restoring fiscal discipline to reverse the decade of economic mismanagement. In October, we delivered a responsible budget that is right for the times and readies us for the future. It puts to an end the record rorts and waste that riddled the budgets under those opposite. Investments in services and programs that—
Minister, please resume. Senator Hume, I called you at least 3 times and you just chose to continue. That is incredibly disrespectful. I ask you to listen in silence. Minister, please continue.
Sorry, I didn't hear the interjections. I've got a coping mechanism where I block them out.
Senator McGrath.
Okay. Investments in services and programs that matter to the Australian people, like childcare, like aged care, like cheaper medicines, like housing, like climate. Investments— well, there were billions of dollars in our Powering Australia plan. I take that interjection from you, Senator McGrath. Our Powering Australia plan to fix the energy mess that we inherited. The negligence of those opposite when they were in government to put their head in the sand and pretend that the most significant economic transformation and challenge facing the country just wasn't going to happen, that they didn't need to deal with it. Well, we're dealing with it in our first budget. We've also begun implementing the Buy Australian plan, which is our plan to use the government's purchasing power to help grow Australian businesses, create jobs, develop up sovereign capability and back Australian businesses. Our spending review identified $22 billion in savings over 4 years to deal with the budget.
Thank you, Minister. Your time has expired. When there's quiet, I'm going to call Senator Urquhart for her first supplementary. Senator Urquhart.
Can the minister provide further information about how the government has begun meaningful reform to shift the dial on gender equality and reduce the barriers faced by women in this country?
Minister.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Urquhart for the question. As Minister for Women, I'm very proud to say that gender equality has been at the core of this government from day one, because gender equality is a core Labor value. I don't need to convince my colleagues, men or women, that we needed to get moving on gender equality. We just get on with it. The Albanese government is putting gender equality front and centre of our economic policy. We're giving women more choices through modernising and expanding PPL and making childcare cheaper. We released the National Plan to End Violence Against Women and Children under the leadership— well, it was a very different plan, Senator Ruston, by the time it got signed off, let me tell you that, by the time the states and territories signed up to it. We've got our housing agenda. We're implementing Respect at Work recommendations, including a positive duty for workplaces to prevent sexual harassment, and we're beginning work on the National Strategy for Gender Equality, guided by the Women's Economic Equality Task Force, and there is much more to do.
Your time has expired. Senator Urquhart, second supplementary.
Thank you, Senator Gallagher. Thank you, President. Can the minister provide further information about how the government has begun making the institution of the Australian Public Service stronger, more enduring and more aligned to the community that we are all here to serve?
Minister.
Thank you very much, President. I thank Senator Urquhart for the question again. Our government is building a stronger public service to better serve all Australians. We abolished the Liberal and National Party's arbitrary and damaging staffing cap that diminished the capability and capacity of the public service and led to an excessive and reflective reliance on wasteful external labour. We are reinvesting in the NDIA, in Services Australia and the Department of Veterans Affairs to improve service delivery for Australians. We've appointed a dedicated Secretary for Public Sector Reform to deliver on our agenda and have commenced an audit of employment to improve job security and save taxpayers' money. We have also restored the ability of workers and their representatives to bargain in good faith and be consulted. What about that? How radical is that? And I want to take this opportunity to thank the 160,000 public servants who have worked so hard to support the government deliver on our commitments to the Australian people.
Thank you, Minister. Your time has expired. Senator O'Sullivan.
Thank you very much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Prior to the election, Prime Minister Albanese said to all Australians, "I'll say this very clearly, they will be better off under a Labor government." He promised that a Labor government will see electricity prices fall from the current levels by $275 for households by 2025. But isn't it true that, according to your own budget, this December, Aussies will have to pay 50% more just to run the aircon, pump the pool and turn on the Christmas lights?
Thank you, Senator O'Sullivan. Minister Wong.
Take no responsibility.
Well, it is the case. Sorry, did you call me?
No, I called you.
Sorry.
I did call you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Senators, interjections across the chamber are particularly disorderly. Minister, please continue.
It is the case that Australians are battling higher energy prices, and we know why that is. We know what we inherited, and we know where global markets are. Well, I think you perfected the art of "I don't hold a hose, mate." I'll take the interjection from Senator Ruston. She says, she says, don't take responsibility. I mean, we've got your people in the House voting against the censure motion for the Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister, who made an art form of never taking responsibility for everything. So let's be clear about who has been prepared to be upfront with the Australian people, who is clear that we have an energy, we have a significant a problem in our energy markets that the government is working through, which is as a consequence of nearly a decade of inaction and denial of 22 failed energy policies and what is occurring globally. Now, I know those opposite don't like to be reminded of this, but the reality is renewables are the cheapest form of power. Oh, see, this is if you ever wanted an example of why energy markets are where they are, it's because you are still locked into an ideological battle, the vortex of inaction, because of the fight between the Jared Rennicks and the Andrew Braggs.
Senator Wong, please resume your seat. Order once again on my left. Please continue, Minister.
The ideological vortex
Please sit down. Senator Rennick, I have just called the chamber to order, and the minute the minister is back on her feet, you are interjecting. It is disorderly. Minister, please continue.
Well, I'm actually happy to take Senator Rennick's interjections, because I think what it demonstrates is, and so does the result in Victoria and the result of all of those seats, which were traditional Liberal heartland seats, that your ideological fight internally has put you out of touch with the market and where most Australians are. That is the hard reality.
Your time has expired. Senator O'Sullivan, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. In the coming weeks, Australians will be heading back home to their families and then off to a well-deserved break. Some will be at the beach and some will head to the regions. Isn't it true that they'll be paying more for their plane tickets, more for their bus tickets, and then more for their snacks at the survey, and your government has no plans to fix it?
Minister.
So what we are saying is this. We are investing $24 billion to fix transmission and speed up renewable energy. We have heads of agreement with East Coast LNG exporters to deliver more gas in 2023. The budget had a package to give the regulators...
Minister, please resume. Senator O'Sullivan.
Point of order on relevance. My question went to cost of living.
Yep, and I believe the minister is being relevant to that. Senator O'Sullivan, Minister.
I'd have something to do with this. Budget had a $67 million package to give regulators, including the ACCC, the AER and AEMO, more powers to monitor gas supply and take action. We've overhauled the gas trigger to allow it to be activated quarterly if there is a shortfall, and force exporters to divert supply for domestic markets. These are all things you did not do, and we are working with the ACCC to strengthen the code of conduct between gas suppliers and customers to get reasonable prices in the market. Now, we know there is more to do, but unlike you, we are not engaged in an internal ideological fight between people like you who might have a rational position and Senator Rennick, who continues to argue a position that reminds me of the Flintstones.
Wong, your time has expired. Order. Senator O'Sullivan. Order. Order, senators on both sides. Senator O'Sullivan.
Thank you, President. Very soon, Australians will be gathered around the table for Christmas lunch. They will not be better off. They will have paid more for the turkey, more for the ham, more for the bonbons, more for the beers or possibly the Prosecco, and more to get presents for the kids.
Order.
Is this what the Minister for Employment meant when he said people will be seeing in their bank accounts what a change in government means?
Before I call the minister, Senator Pulley, I've called the chamber to order and you have constantly been interjecting throughout the time Senator O'Sullivan was order. Minister.
Well, unlike the good senator, I don't operate under the delusion that people around the Christmas lunch table are going to be thinking about politics. But anyway, what I would say this, if they did, what they would know is that there is a party that has consistently supported lower wage rises, lower wages for nearly a decade. That there is a party that has proudly supported low wages as a deliberate design feature of the Australian economy. There's a party who opposed the $1 an hour increase to the minimum wage, a party who opposed wage increases for aged care workers and early childhood educators.
Minister Wong.